Hey guys, welcome back to more Berwick Saga. I gotta say, this map, I do not like it very much. It just really sucks in so many ways. So let's get into it. The first thing to do is our mercifully short preparations. In a cutscene after completing the previous chapter, we automatically permanently recruit Izerna, who's our first healer. Unfortunately, she has 3 moves, so she sucks, but what can you do? We are also going to go out and hire Sylvis for this chapter. Sylvis is the sniper who helped us take out Griff and Graf in the last map, and she's now available for hire, and she's really good, particularly because she comes with a fairly strong bow and some extremely strong arrows to go with it. The unfortunate thing about Sylvis is that she's fairly expensive to hire, but she's generally pretty well worth it. So, the upcoming map is the first appearance of Fog of War in this game, and if you've played any of the Fire Emblem games with this, you'll know that Fog of War really sucks, and this game is no exception, although I believe it's slightly fairer in this game, because unless I'm mistaken, the enemies are also affected by fog in this game. The other thing about this map that makes it a little tricky is that we don't start with the units that we deploy on the map. Instead, they are going to only appear on turn 4, and until then, we are stuck with 2 new mercenary units called Arthur and Ruby. Neither Arthur nor Ruby is particularly good at combat, though Arthur is the better of the 2. But even he is not able to one-round KO most of the enemies on this map. So instead we're going to use Ruby to bait out a few enemies, and then have Arthur move up, so that he doesn't get blocked off. One advantage that Arthur does have is his skill called Hurry, which allows him to move with +1 extra movement by selecting it, as long as he then waits at the end of his movement. And I'm going to be using this a fair amount to get him closer to the boss as quickly as possible, because that means that he's not going to be occupying a space for my main units as they move through the map. The big thing making enemy units hard to kill in this map is what's happening now, an enemy using the Dark Mend spell. This is a dark magic orb that heals units from afar, and that means that no matter how much damage I manage to do with Arthur and Ruby, odds are it's going to be erased as soon as that guy's turn comes up. Ruby is going to be doing sterling work drawing away the lower group of enemies as much as possible, but it's a bit scary because one of them has a weapon called a firebrand. This is one of those magical weapons that I mentioned in the previous map, and if she gets hit by it, she takes a huge amount of damage, to the point where she pretty much has to dodge every other attack after being hit with it once. So the overall strategy for this map is to get Arthur and 1 other unit up to kill the boss, who is the goal of this map. Unfortunately, Ruby is not up to the task because she is very easily blocked off by all of these enemies. If there were no enemies on this map, then the theoretical turn floor would be 5, because Arthur with 1 hurry use is able to reach the boss and attack him on turn 4. He would be able to use one of his other skills, Flourish, which increases the injury rate, to injure the boss, and then on turn 5 I would be able to use the battle save to rig a cripple, allowing my second unit to move up and capture him then. Because of all the enemies on the map though, this isn't going to work out, and there's one other problem that I'm going to come to shortly. For now, let's turn our attention back to Ruby, who's moving to a specific space in order to cause the enemies to move into some of the deployment spaces where our other units are about to turn up. For some reason, the deployment slots that these units get is randomized, which why, Kaga? Why? So Ruby and these enemies being down here increases the likelihood that Sylvis is going to end up in a favorable deployment position, because Sylvis's movement is low enough that she does have a very tight movement path to reach the boss in time to kill him on turn 7. It is important that Sylvis in particular be able to reach the boss, because if we tried to use a one-range unit, we would also have to remove the enemy who is sitting right next to the boss in order to attack him with 2 one-range units in a single turn. Now, you will probably have noticed that there is a unit with a yellow aura running around in the map. This guy was crippled by the boss's goon in the pre-battle cutscene, and we are going to have to grab him at some point because he has an item that is critical for the strategy that I'm using. Crippled units have weird things happening with how their movement plays out, so it's random whether this guy gets to a position that I want him to be in later on, although I am usually able to play around regardless of where he ends up. It's just a bit more irritating sometimes. This enemy attacking Arthur dealt a lot of damage, but as a result of that attack, his weapon broke. And that's really lucky because that's one less enemy that I have to worry about attacking Arthur, who is going to end up on very low HP by the end of this map. As I alluded to in the last video, weapon breakage in this game is random for most weapons and can happen at any point once their durability is below a certain level. I'm not totally clear on the details offhand, but basically once you get low enough, there's a random chance for a reasonably undamaged weapon to just break, and that can be really annoying. Arthur is moving into the boss's range on this turn. The boss has a Berserk Orb, which as its name implies will inflict the Berserk condition on the unit that it targets, and it has 5 range. However, the boss has already taken his action this turn, so Arthur is fine to sit there and wait to get berserked next turn. There is no way to avoid being berserked by this boss as far as I know, so we are going to have to deal with being hit by that and the consequences thereof. On turn 5, Sylvis is going to be moving first, because as a bow user she obviously can't counterattack at melee range, and so it's pretty easy for her to be blocked off by the enemies. And since she is the one who has the tightest movement requirements, she has to move first so that she can use her full move on each turn. The next unit to act is Arthur, because he is going to get berserked this turn, and if he still has his action available after getting hit by that, his action will be delayed until the end of the turn, and that means that he'll move somewhere where we don't want him to. So in this game, the Berserk status means that the affected unit is always going to attack one of their allies. There is no chance of them ever targeting an enemy unit while they're berserked. And because of that, Arthur needs to not have any action while he is berserked, lest he attack one of our units and move himself out of position. When I was trying to cut turns with just Arthur and Ruby, I have had Arthur lose the Berserk status early. I'm not quite sure what causes that, so if anyone wants to explain status conditions to me in the comments, I would be grateful. As Arthur gets berserked, he is in a pretty risky position, because the raised war monks near him both have magical weapons that will kill him in one hit if they hit him. So we have to rely on dodges there as well. Fortunately, the Darkmend guy is more inclined to use that than attack, and the enemy up next to the boss does not move at all. So Arthur just has to dodge one of these attacks in order to survive. It's still risky, but it works out. On turn 6, we need to cure Arthur's Berserk status, And to that end, we are going to capture the yellow unit who has been hobbling around this whole time. He is carrying a sedative, which is an item that can cure the berserk status. After capturing him, to maximize reliability, we want to kill as many of the enemies around as we can, so that they can't kill our units who are now on quite low HP. Volo is using deathmatch to this end to deal with the annoying knife guy. He is the highest priority because he is easy to kill, and because he uses a knife, he has a higher injury rate than other units against our units, and we don't want our guys to get injured. Silvus moves up and trades off the sedative in order to cure Arthur's berserk status now. Silvus does lose one space of movement while doing this. However, because of my blocking shenanigans with Ruby and the enemies back on turn 3, she is still able to reach the boss and attack him on the next turn from where she is standing, so that's alright. The remainder of this turn is pretty much just trying to feed as many kills into Dean as possible, because Dean is a pretty strong unit, and I have sneaked a peek at his permanent recruitment requirements. In order to permanently recruit Dean, he needs to kill at least 60 enemies, so I'm going to be focusing on him for kills a fair amount until he gets to that point, because Dean is someone I really do want to recruit before the end of the game. To be honest, I probably should have tried to feed some kills into Ruby as well, because she has a similar requirement at a later point. But we're going to have to deal with that, I guess, and Dean's a higher priority anyway. At the start of turn 7, an enemy reinforcement arrives with an attacking magic orb for the boss. However, he is far too late, as we are pretty much ready to take Desard out once and for all. Leon's shield unfortunately breaks as he is taking out one of the Ray's war monks, but that's probably worth it, because otherwise this guy could have attacked Arthur and killed him. And also, getting this kill means Leon levels up again, which is always nice. Plus, that guy being dead means that the remaining threatening enemies both decide to heal instead of attacking. And that frees up Volo to rush across to the right-hand side of the map and grab a hidden item over there, which is going to be used later on to forge some weapons up. And that's pretty much all the relevant stuff being done by our other units on this turn. So let's talk about the boss kill. Silvus and Arthur between them are able to kill the boss, although Arthur does have a fairly shaky hit rate. But what ends up happening is even better. Silvus activates the maim skill, which dramatically increases the chance of crippling the target, which is in fact what ends up happening to Desard. This means that Arthur is able to walk up to him and capture him 100% reliably, without relying on his approximately 67 listed hit. There's another benefit to capturing Desard, but that's going to have to wait until the next video. So, with Desard defeated, the chapter is completed in 7 turns. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.